Good afternoon and welcome to Network Central's Management Masterclass webinar series. My name's Kim McGuinness and I'll be your host for today and interviewing the fabulous Sonja Falvo, who I've set her a challenge. If she can get me stress-free and fabulous in 30 days, then I think I'll just kiss her feet. So she has a large challenge on her head right now. So to tell you a little bit more about Sonja, she's been professionally involved in the health and fitness industry for the past 7 years at both a national and an international level, and currently she's the Director and Body Transformation Specialist at Real Body Enterprises. She's published 2 books and has firmly positioned herself as an expert in the health, fitness and weight loss industry. Now, from 2003 to 2006, Sonja was owner and director of What Women Want Personal Training, love the name, one of Brisbane's most prestigious and successful personal training studios. And after selling her business in 2006 and moving to the UK, Sonja was recruited by the world's largest health club chain, Fitness First. So starting out as general manager, Fitness First quickly realised that her skills were highly valuable, and she was then promoted to the position of national fitness manager in UK. In a company that is largely dominated by male senior managers, she managed to establish herself as a strong player within this multinational company, and then she was further promoted to customer relations project manager, where she's headed up a national rollout campaign for a new retention program for the company. Leaving Fitness First last year to travel and then after that write 2 books, Sonja has since launched her new company, Real Body Enterprises, which focuses on delivering a simple and effective healthy lifestyle program for real people wanting to achieve real weight loss without dieting, fitness fads or money-wasting gimmicks. I'm fascinated to hear more. So if you're a gold member of Network Central, you can see this recording from next week in the members area, and I'll send you a link to that after it's done so that you can watch it at any time.
In the whole history of man, we've always had stress, but the original type of stress, as I say, goes back to when we were hunters and gatherers, and our bodies back then were designed to deal with life-threatening situations in what was known as fight or flight response. So basically a stressful situation back then might have been us coming face-to-face with a wild animal. So our fight or flight response would kick in, cause a chemical reaction in our brains, which is what stress is, a chemical reaction, and that would then allow us to either run like mad to outrun the danger or to stay and face it and fight. And that's basically our physiological response to stress, and that's what we were designed for. Now, in today's climate, the situations have changed. We don't really come face-to-face with dangerous animals anymore, but the equivalent might be someone coming up behind you and, scaring you, or stepping out from a curb and almost being hit by a car. So it's that almost instantaneous adrenaline rush and then the instant relief. And that's really what our bodies were designed to cope with. The second type of stress, which is much more dangerous, and certainly the unfortunate people who have had the heart attacks that we're speaking about, this would be the type of stress I was suffering from. So this second type of stress is known as chronic stress. And what that does is it increases the level of a stress hormone called cortisol. And when that stress hormone is left constantly high, it can lead to a whole different series of health issues. Now, cortisol and adrenaline are both types of stress hormones, but we only have enough adrenaline in our bodies to last about 2 hours a day, and cortisol is pretty much on tap. So once we run out of adrenaline, the only stress hormone we can rely on is cortisol. Now, because our modern world really requires our evolutionary fight or flight response to stress, we're actually denying our bodies that natural physical reaction to stress where we would be either running really fast or staying and fighting, because both of those things actually require a large amount of energy. So unfortunately, what our brain's doing is it's still registering stress in the same way as it always has. But because we no longer react to that stress with vigorous movements, our bodies just to continue to churn out these high level of stress hormones. So what this means is most of our daily stresses now do come from chronic stress. And chronic stress usually happens when you feel like you've got one issue or problem just piling on top of another, or you might have one really big issue or problem that you're spending your whole time just constantly thinking about or stressing about. So really in today's society, where there seems to be an ever-increasing amount of responsibility and social pressures, it's just getting increasingly more difficult to balance work, life and health together. So on a day-to-day basis, just to give you an example, these are the types of thoughts we all have running through our head. So it might be, am I pulling my weight at work but not treading on other people's toes so as to make them feel inadequate? Am I working hard enough to impress the boss for a pay rise, but still spending enough time with my family? Am I a good parent? Am I raising my children to be a role model citizen, and are they going to love me when they get older? Am I eating the right foods, or what should I be eating? Am I exercising enough? What are the magazines saying about exercise? What are the magazines saying about food? Am I being selfish because I spend time alone? Am I doing enough for the environment? Did I vote? Have I paid my bills? Traffic, parenting, career, carer? Oh my God, no wonder some days we're overwhelmed. But that's just an example. You know, we have 60,000 thoughts a day going through our head, and if we don't manage those thoughts and our activities, that's when we tend to get stressed. Now, on top of the fact that we're trying to live up to all these expectations, another type of chronic stress that we have are our imaginary stresses. So this is when we think of a situation, we think about all the what-ifs of the situation. So it might be, just as an example, your husband's coming home late from work and he hasn't called. So suddenly we think, oh my God, he's been in an accident. What if something's happened? Is he having an affair? Oh my God, what's happening? And we start to get that knot inside of our stomach. Now, nothing has actually happened. He walks through the door 10 minutes later, he's got a bunch of flowers for you. But the fact that we've gone through that process in our head and created that stressful situation in our minds, it still actually causes that same response to stress. So we have actually released those stress hormones into our body once again. So now it's also important to understand when it comes to the release of that cortisol hormone in our body is that one of the roles of cortisol is actually to restore our energy following stress. And the way it does this is it releases glucose, fats and amino acids into the bloodstream. And now, while for a lot of people they think, oh, releasing fat sounds good, if this continues over a prolonged period, what you actually end up doing is losing a significant amount of muscle mass, and you actually end up storing that fat around your stomach. Because what your body thinks is because you haven't been able to use that fat that's been released, it needs to keep it in a handy place so it can get to it pretty quickly if it needs to. And that's why often people who have very stressful jobs tend to have more fat stored around their stomach. And quite often, because in the past men have had those corporate jobs, they have been the ones that have, you know, been renowned to have the heart attacks and the high stress illnesses. The other thing that cortisol does is it makes your appetite increase, so you feel hungry almost all the time. And that's why a lot of people who feel stressed constantly reach out for food.
So that explains
pretty
it.
much.
That explains
it. All down to stress.
Don't get stressed, stay thin. I like that.
That's it.
That's a perfectly valid reason for not getting stressed.
Well, and it's a myth because years ago people go, oh, you know, if people are stressed, they're thin. But, you know, the research they've done actually shows the opposite because we tend to reach more for food than we do for, you know, for not eating. So that's pretty much how stress affects us, both physically and mentally. And so my goal with today's webinar is really to give you the tools you need to put together a de-stress action plan so you can deal with life's challenging situations and so that you can keep your work, life and health in balance and enjoy life because, you know, we're only here for a short time.